The ancient armor. In a small, remote corner of the galaxy, a young explorer named Jake found himself standing at the entrance of an ancient alien city. The air was thick with mystery, and the towering stone structures seemed to hold secrets that no one had uncovered in centuries. Jake had been traveling the galaxy for years, exploring forgotten worlds and learning from different civilizations. But nothing had prepared him for this. He had been invited here by Lyra, an alien girl from a proud race, known for their ancient history and their powerful artifacts. She had greeted him with a smile, leading him through narrow streets lined with statues that seemed to watch every step he took. They had reached a large stone building, the walls carved with intricate patterns, and inside, she had shown him what he had come for. "This," Lyra said, with a mysterious grin, "is my ancestor's most treasured possession. It's an ancient suit of armor, passed down through generations." She stepped aside, revealing a dusty, old display case. Inside was a suit of armor, like nothing Jake had ever seen before. Its metal shimmered with an otherworldly glow, and its design was elegant, yet simple, with sharp edges and flowing lines. It looked as if it had been crafted by beings who had mastered both beauty and function. Jake, intrigued by the beauty of the armor, took a step closer. "It's amazing," he said, unable to hide his admiration. Lyra smiled. "Yeah, it's been in my family for generations. It's said to hold the power of my ancestors, but nobody knows its true potential. In fact, most of us think it's just a relic now. So, why show it to me?" Jake asked, a little confused. "Because," Lyra began, her voice soft but playful, "I thought it would be fun to let you try it on." "What?" Jake blinked in surprise. "Come on," she said with a teasing grin. "Just for fun. Don't worry, it's just a joke. No one believes it's magical or anything." Jake hesitated, glancing at the armor. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, but Lyra's infectious smile made him curious. He had heard rumors of powerful artifacts across the galaxy, but this was different. It felt important, even if Lyra seemed to treat it like a joke. "All right," Jake said with a chuckle. "I'll try it on, but only if you help me out of this thing afterward." Lyra laughed. "Deal." With her help, Jake carefully stepped into the armor. The pieces fit snugly around his body, and as he fastened the last strap, something strange happened. A subtle hum filled the air, almost like a low vibration that made the hairs on his arms stand up. He took a deep breath, looking at his reflection in a nearby mirror. The armor seemed to glow brighter, its metal now radiating a soft, pulsating light. "How do I look?" he asked, half joking, half nervous. Lyra stepped back, her eyes wide. "You look, different." "Different, how?" Jake asked, feeling the weight of the armor settle around him. It's reacting to you. I've never seen it do that before," she said, her voice tinged with awe. She looked at him, unsure of what was happening. Maybe it's more than just a relic." Jake shifted uneasily, suddenly feeling the weight of the situation. "I don't know if I like this," he admitted, his voice uneasy, just as he was about to take the armor off. Something inside him shifted. The suit of armor seemed to pulse, almost as if it was alive. The vibration became stronger, and suddenly, he felt a surge of energy rushing through his veins. It was like nothing he had ever experienced. The power coursed through his body, making him feel stronger, faster, more alive. His senses sharpened, and the world around him seemed to slow down. Lyra stepped back, her eyes widening in disbelief. "What's happening?" she whispered, her voice filled with fear. Jake looked down at his hands, his fingers glowing with a soft, golden light. "I don't know," he said, his voice trembling. This wasn't supposed to happen." The ancient armor, which had been nothing more than a joke to them both, had just awakened something deep inside Jake. The power inside the armor was real, and it was beginning to stir. As the energy within him grew stronger, Jake took a step forward, but his feet felt lighter, as if he was floating. The world around him seemed to stretch, his vision sharpening to an impossible clarity. He could see the fine details of the stone walls, the intricate carvings that once seemed like nothing more than decoration. Now, they were alive with stories, tales of warriors long gone. Lyra, ... Jake started, his voice full of wonder and fear. I think I've made a huge mistake. Lyra could only stare, her mouth agape. You didn't just try on the armor, did you? Jake looked at her, his heart racing. What do you mean? That armor doesn't just fit anyone. It chooses its wearer. And now, it's choosing you. The truth hit Jake like a wave, crashing against the shore. This was no joke. The armor had chosen him, and now he had to face the consequences. The ancient power that had lain dormant for centuries had just awakened, and there was no turning back. Asterisk, 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 the hidden power. Jake stood there, frozen, his mind racing. The armor, once nothing more than a relic, now thrummed with an unfamiliar energy, a pulse that resonated deep within his chest. Every fiber of his being felt alive, as though the suit had merged with him. The metallic surface of the armor shimmered in the dim light, its glow flickering like a heartbeat, as if the armor itself was trying to communicate with him. Lyra, he gasped, his voice barely a whisper. What's happening to me? Lyra took a step back, her eyes wide with a mix of awe and fear. She had never seen anything like this before. The armor had never reacted this way to anyone, certainly not to her, and definitely not to a human. Her people had told stories about the armor's power, passed down through generations, but it was always a myth. Now, standing before her was the proof. I don't know, Lyra said, her voice trembling. This isn't supposed to happen. The armor was meant to be a symbol of strength, not a weapon. It's never. Before she could finish, Jake's senses exploded with a rush of information. The world around him seemed too slow, and for a brief moment, he saw everything in sharp detail, every grain in the stone walls, every ripple in the air, every movement of light. His vision zoomed in on Lyra, and he could see the tiny beads of sweat on her forehead, the subtle nervousness in her posture. Then, something else. A distant, echoing roar, vibrating through the ground beneath them. It was faint at first, but it grew louder, like a low thunder, coming from somewhere far below the city. Do you hear that? Jake asked, his voice tense. Lyra froze. She nodded, her expression hardening. It's coming from the depths of the ruins, she said. But no one has ever been able to reach that part of the city. There's nothing down there but forgotten history. Jake looked at her, his heart racing. But now, I feel like I could. His mind was spinning, but the armor, now fully bonded with him, seemed to be guiding his every thought. He wasn't sure how, or why, but the power coursing through him was undeniable. It wasn't just strength, there was something more, something ancient. The longer he wore the armor, the more the world felt like it was shifting around him, as though the very fabric of reality was bending at his will. Then, it happened, with a sudden burst of energy. Jake moved instinctively, and before he knew it, he had leaped across the room, landing with a perfect roll. The force of his movement sent a shockwave through the air, rattling the walls and causing the dust from the ceiling to fall in slow motion. He stood up, unhurt, and looked back at Lyra, who was still standing where he had been just a moment. I'll go. Lyra stared at him, her mouth hanging open. What was that? She whispered. That shouldn't be possible. Jake was breathing heavily, but he couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of exhilaration. The power that surged through him was intoxicating, but it also left him feeling uneasy. It was like riding a wild storm, and he didn't know if he could control it. I don't know, Jake replied, his voice still shaky. But it felt like I was connected to something, like the armor was guiding me. He took another step, and the ground seemed to tremble underfoot. A strange sensation crawled up his spine. The armor was more than just a suit, it was alive, pulsating, like it had a mind of its own. The roar from below grew louder, and Jake could feel the vibrations intensifying, almost as if the armor itself recognized the threat. "We need to get out of here," Lyra said, her voice sharp with urgency. "The ruins are shifting. Whatever's happening down there, it's waking up. And if you're wearing that armor..." Jake looked at her, a sense of dread creeping into his gut. "What do you mean? What's down there?" "I don't know," Lyra replied, her voice trembling. "But the legends say that the armor is tied to something. Something dark. Something dangerous." Before Jake could respond, the roar grew louder, shaking the entire building. The walls cracked, and the floor beneath them began to tremble, violently. Lyra staggered, grabbing Jake's arm for balance. "We have to go, now," she urged. Jake nodded, his heart pounding as he followed Lyra down the winding corridors of the ancient city. The air was thick with dust, and the walls seemed to close in around them as the rumble from below grew stronger. He could feel the armor pulsing, as if it were responding to the danger. He didn't understand it, but he knew one thing: he had to reach the source of the noise. The armor was calling him to it, guiding him. They reached the heart of the ruins, and the ground cracked wide open, revealing a deep chasm that stretched into the blackness below. The roar had turned into a deafening roar, and from the depths of the chasm, a massive shadow emerged. A creature, ancient and terrifying, crawled its way up from the depths, its eyes glowing with an eerie, unnatural light. Jake's blood ran cold. The legends had been true. This was no ordinary city, it was a prison, holding something that should never have been freed. And now, the armor was the key to unlocking its power. "What is that thing?" Jake whispered, his voice barely audible over the noise. Lyra grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with fear. "We have to stop it. And you?" She hesitated, looking at Jake with a mix of fear and hope. "You're the only one who can..." Jake looked at the creature, feeling a surge of power from the armor. He didn't know how he knew it, but he could sense that he was connected to it now, that the armor was part of something bigger, a legacy that could either save or destroy everything. "Let's finish this," Jake muttered, stepping forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Asterisk. The first test. The ground rumbled beneath Jake's feet, sending a wave of unease through his body. The armor, which had once seemed like a harmless relic, now felt heavy, almost sentient, as if it could feel the impending threat approaching. His breath came in shallow gasps, the power pulsing through him, yet he had no idea how to control it. It was as if the armor was alive, urging him forward. Lyra grabbed his arm, pulling him back as the massive creature began to crawl closer from the depths of the chasm. Its form was barely visible in the shifting darkness, but its glowing eyes shone with an unnatural, predatory light. It was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. Towering, insect-like monster with jagged armor plating covering its body, and teeth that could tear through metal like paper. "Stay back," Lyra warned, her voice filled with urgency. "That thing is the last of the ancient guardians. It was created to protect the city's secrets, but it's been waiting for centuries for someone to release it." Jake's heart pounded in his chest, and for the first time, he felt completely out of his depth. "We can't fight that thing, Lyra. It's huge." She shook her head, her expression grim. "We don't have a choice. That creature will destroy everything in its path. It will destroy the city and everything in it. But you..." She stopped, her gaze locked onto Jake's. "You have the power to stop it." Jake blinked, the weight of her words sinking in. "What do you mean? I don't even know what I'm doing. I can't control this power. The armor, it's too much." But Lyra's eyes held a flicker of hope. "You're the one the armor chose. You have the bloodline of my ancestors running through you now. The power is in you deep inside, hidden in the armor. You have to unlock it, or we're all dead." Jake swallowed hard. The armor, which had felt like a joke just hours ago, was now his only hope. He didn't understand it, but somehow, he knew Lyra was right. This wasn't just about him. It was about the fate of an entire city, and possibly the entire galaxy. The creature roared, its sound vibrating the air and shaking the very earth beneath them. It was coming closer, each step shaking the ground with terrifying force. Jake's heart raced, his mind clouded with fear. He didn't know what to do, but as he looked down at the armor, something stirred inside him. A flash of memory. A vision of warriors Lyra's ancestors fighting in the depths of the ancient city. There, armor glowing with the same golden light now surrounding Jake. They were unstoppable. The power coursing through their veins was something primal, something ancient. The vision faded as quickly as it came, but Jake felt it. The power was there. Inside him. Focus, Lyra said, her voice breaking through his thoughts. The armor is tied to your instincts. You need to trust it. Trust yourself. Jake closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He had no choice but to try. There was no time for hesitation. The creature was nearly upon them. Suddenly, the armor seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat, responding to his growing panic. The energy within him grew stronger, sharper. It felt like his very soul was merging with the suit, as though the armor was becoming one with his body. He felt his muscles tightening, his senses sharpening. The world around him slowed to a crawl, every movement of the creature now visible to him with excruciating detail. The ground cracked as the monster surged forward, its massive claws digging into the earth. But Jake didn't flinch. The armor was guiding him, pushing him forward. His legs moved of their own accord, and before he even realized it, he was running faster than he had ever run in his life. The creature's eyes locked onto him, its jaws snapping open as it let out a deafening roar. But Jake was faster. With a sudden burst of energy, he leaped into the air, twisting his body in mid-flight. The world around him seemed to stretch, the armor allowing him to move like he was weightless. He landed with a force so powerful that the ground cracked beneath him, sending a shockwave through the area. The creature recoiled, surprised by Jake's sudden agility, but it wasn't enough to stop it. It charged at him, faster than he could react. Jake's heart skipped a beat, but then, without thinking, his hand shot out, and a beam of golden energy erupted from his palm, striking the creature in the chest. The creature screeched, stumbling back as the energy rippled through its body. The force of the blast sent it crashing into the walls of the chasm, causing the ground to shake even more violently. Jake stood, panting, his hands trembling with the aftershock of the blast. What just happened? Jake asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lyra stood in shock, her eyes wide with disbelief. You did it. You unlocked it. The arm responding to you. You're controlling it. But Jake didn't feel like he was in control. It felt as if the armor itself had taken over, guiding his every move, unlocking powers he didn't even know existed. The power was there, but it was so much more than he had expected. And now, with the creature still alive, the fight was far from over. The monster shook off the blast, its form starting to heal, its wounds closing up with unnatural speed. It let out a furious roar, and Jake realized that the armor wasn't enough. Not yet. The battle was only beginning, and he still had much to learn about the power that now flowed through him. You have to finish this, Lyra said, her voice urgent. The armor's just the beginning. You've tapped into its power, but you need more. You need to learn how to control it. Jake nodded, feeling the weight of her words. The creature was regenerating, and time was running out. He had unlocked a new power, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. With a deep breath, Jake steeled himself for what was to come. The creature was healing, and his first test was far from over. He wasn't just fighting for his life anymore, he was fighting for everything. The true battle had just begun. Uncovering the truth, the creature was still reeling from the blow. But it wasn't down. Not yet. The air buzzed with energy, the ground beneath Jake's feet vibrating with the force of the battle. The armor around him hummed, responding to his adrenaline, the power coursing through him like a tidal wave threatening to break free. Jake knew that the creature wasn't just a mindless beast, it was something ancient, a guardian tied to the very foundation of the city. And as he looked down at the glowing symbols etched into the armor, he realized something else. He had no idea what he had truly awakened. Lyra's voice broke through the chaos, her urgency pushing him to focus. Jake, you need to understand. The armor is not just a weapon. It's a key, a connection to something much older. Something that can either save or destroy everything. The creature, it's only a part of the puzzle. Jake turned to her, his breath ragged, still trying to grasp the magnitude of what she was saying. What are you talking about? I thought this was just some old artifact. You said it was a relic. Lyra's eyes burned with a mixture of fear and determination. That's what we all thought. The armor was meant to be a symbol, a piece of history. But it's more than that. It was created to guard a secret, something so powerful that even my people forgot about it. The creature, it's a guardian, sure, but it was never supposed to be freed, and neither was the armor. Jake took a step back, his mind racing. If this armor is a key, then what is it unlocking? Lyra hesitated, but only for a moment. The armor was made to awaken the hidden power beneath this city. Something buried deep below, something my people once used to protect themselves from an enemy they couldn't defeat. They sealed it away, hoping it would never be used again. The air seemed to grow colder as the ground continued to tremble beneath them. The creature, now recovering, let out another deafening roar, and this time, Jake felt it deep within him. The armor responded, flaring up with energy, its symbols glowing brighter. I don't understand, Jake muttered, his hands trembling. What is this power? What's hidden beneath the city? The power of the ancients, Lyra replied, her voice heavy with sorrow, and the weapon that could destroy entire worlds. Jake's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean, destroy worlds? Long ago, Lyra continued, my ancestors faced an enemy they could not stop, a force so powerful that no army, no weapon, could defeat it. So, they sealed away the power, the weapon that could rival anything the universe has ever known. The armor was made to unlock it, to give its wearer control over it. But it's not just a weapon, it's a force that can change the balance of the universe. The realization hit Jake like a wave crashing against the shore. This wasn't just about some ancient armor, it was about a weapon that could reshape the very fabric of existence. And now, it was in his hands. But why me? Jake asked, his voice barely a whisper. Why did the armor choose me? I'm just a human. I'm not one of your people. I don't know anything about this. Lyra's eyes softened, and for the first time, there was a hint of empathy in her gaze. You were chosen because you are the one who can control it. Your kind humans, a connection to the armor that my people never understood. The energy inside you, your connection to the universe. It's different from ours. You are the key. Jake took a step back, trying to process everything she was saying. He had never signed up for any of this. He had come here to explore a strange new world, not to become the possessor of an ancient weapon that could destroy entire civilizations. But as the creature's roars echoed around them, Jake realized that there was no turning back. The battle had already begun, and the fate of everything was now tied to his ability to control the power of the armor. The ground continued to shake, the rumbling intensifying as the creature grew stronger. Jake could feel it, something within. The armor was calling to him, urging him to act. The creature, the guardian, was not just protecting the city, it was trying to stop him from reaching whatever was buried beneath. And now, Jake understood. The creature wasn't the true threat. It was only the first test. Jake, we need to move, Lyra said urgently, grabbing his arm. You have to reach the chamber beneath the city, where the power is sealed. The armor will guide you, but only you can control it. The creature won't stop until it stops you. It's not just protecting the city, it's protecting the weapon inside. Jake nodded, the weight of her words settling deep into his bones. He had no idea what he was walking into, but he knew one thing for sure. The stakes had never been higher. The power of the armor wasn't just a gift, it was a curse, one that he had to learn to control before it consumed him. He felt the armor pulsing beneath his skin, and for the first time, he understood. The power inside it was alive, sentient, and it had a will of its own. And now, he had no choice but to follow its lead. With Lyra by his side, Jake took a deep breath and stepped forward, the armor glowing brighter with every step. The creature was closing in, but Jake didn't hesitate. He had to face whatever was hidden beneath the city, and he had to do it before the creature, or worse, the weapon itself, was unleashed. Together, they descended into the heart of the ancient city, into the very depths of the ruin that had been sealed away for centuries. And as the ground rumbled beneath them, Jake could feel it, the pulse of the power that awaited him. Whatever lay ahead, it was only the beginning of a journey that would change everything. Asterisk, the awakening Jake. His heart thundered in his chest as he moved deeper into the ancient underground city. The air was thick with dust and the scent of aged stone, and the glow from the armor illuminated the path before him. Lyra walked at his side, her face etched with concern, but also a faint glimmer of hope. She had told him that the armor would guide him, but the longer they traveled, the more uncertain Jake became. The power inside the suit was unlike anything he had ever felt before. It was overwhelming, as if the very armor was pulling at his soul, urging him forward, deeper into the heart of the ruins. The ground beneath them seemed to pulse with life, as though the city itself was breathing. The walls were lined with ancient symbols, alien markings that Jake couldn't understand, but they felt familiar, like whispers from a distant past. The words etched into the stone seemed to beckon him forward. "Do you feel it?" Lyra asked, her voice low, as if speaking too loudly might disturb something in the dark. Jake nodded, his voice barely audible. "Yeah, it's don't. Strange. It's like the armor is calling to me." "It's not just the armor," Lyra replied, her voice strained. "The power beneath the city is waking up. You're the key to unlocking it. But you're not just unlocking power, Jake. You're awakening a force that hasn't been seen for millennia. This isn't just a weapon. It's something else, something we can't control." Jake clenched his fists, the armor adjusting to his movements instinctively. "And what happens when I can't control it?" Lyra looked at him, her expression tight with fear and determination. "We all die." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Jake didn't want to think about that. He had to focus. They were nearing the heart of the ancient chamber now, the source of the power that had been hidden for so long. The creature had followed them here, but it was no longer just a physical threat, was part of something larger, part of the test. Suddenly, the path ahead opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling so high that it seemed to disappear into the darkness above. At the center of the room was a massive stone altar, surrounded by a circle of stone pillars covered in the same mysterious symbols that had been etched throughout the city. The floor was covered in strange markings, concentric circles of power that hummed with an energy that Jake could feel deep in his bones. "This is it," Lyra whispered, her eyes wide as she stepped forward. Jake looked around the chamber, his pulse quickening. He could feel the power here, vibrating through the air, like 1,000 whispers. The armor on his body pulsed in response, the golden symbols glowing brighter, as if it recognized the chamber for what it was. This was the source of the power. This was what he had been chosen to unlock. Without warning, the ground trembled. The walls shook as if the city itself was reacting to their presence. The roars of the creature, still echoing from above, grew louder, closer. Jake could feel the creature's hatred, its desperation to stop them. But this time, it wasn't just the creature that Jake had to face. It was what lay beneath the altar, what had been sealed away for centuries. Jake, Lyra's voice broke through the chaos. You have to step forward. Only you can activate it. Only you can. Before she could finish, Jake stepped forward, his feet landing on the first of the strange symbols etched into the floor. As soon as he made contact, the entire chamber lit up, a blinding golden light erupting from the symbols beneath his feet. The power surged through him like an electric current, and he felt the armor respond, its energy coursing through him, connecting him to something ancient, something beyond comprehension. The ground beneath them cracked open, the altar before Jake rising into the air. The sound was deafening, a low hum that rattled his teeth. From within the altar's stone, a glowing crystal began to rise, its edges sharp and jagged, glowing with an intense, pulsing light. It floated in mid-air, suspended by an unseen force, and Jake felt its power like a weight pressing down on his chest. Asterisk. This is it, Lyra gasped, her eyes wide with awe. This is what you are meant to awaken. Jake reached out instinctively, his fingers brushing against the crystal. As soon as he made contact, the energy surged, flooding his body with an incredible force. His entire being seemed to resonate with the crystal, the power deep within it, fusing with the energy in the armor. For a moment, Jake felt as though he was no longer himself, as if his body had become one with the armor, the crystal, and the power beneath it all. He could hear voices, whispers from the past, echoes of warriors long gone. Their voices flooded his mind, speaking of victory, of battles fought, and of the price they had paid to seal away this power. But there was something else in the voices. Something darker. Jake, Lyra whispered, her voice filled with dread. What's happening? You're changing. Jake could feel it. The power was too much. It was pouring through him, threatening to break free. The crystal's energy was overwhelming, and the armor seemed to be fighting for control. He couldn't keep up with it. His mind spun as he struggled to stay grounded, to keep himself from being consumed by the force inside him. No, Jake shouted, trying to pull his hand away, but the crystal held him fast, the energy flowing faster now, as if it were drawing from his very soul. The crystal began to crack, its surface splintering as the power within it reached its peak. The roar of the creature above them grew louder, but it was drowned out by the deafening hum of energy filling the chamber. Jake could feel the balance of the universe shifting, as though everything was hanging by a single thread, ready to snap. Jake, you have to stop it, Lyra cried, panic in her voice. If you don't, everything will. But before she could finish, the ground beneath them shook violently. The crystal exploded in a burst of golden light, sending a shock wave of energy throughout the chamber. Jake was thrown back, his body slammed against the stone floor. The armor's power surged one final time, the energy flooding every fiber of his being, and then nothing. The light dimmed. The chamber was silent. Jake lay there, gasping for breath, his body aching from the overwhelming power that had flooded him. He could feel the armor still pulsing against his skin, but the connection to the crystal had vanished. The creature's roars had stopped. The city was silent, but Jake could sense something was wrong. It wasn't over, and the true test had only just begun. Asterisk, asterisk, the enemy reveals itself. Jake's body was still trembling, the power of the crystal still resonating deep within him. His mind was a blur, the energy surging through him like a wild storm, but the overwhelming weight of it began to fade. He slowly rose to his feet, blinking as his vision cleared. The golden glow of the armor had dimmed, but it was still there, pulsing softly against his skin. Lyra stood a few feet away, her expression unreadable. She was silent, her eyes scanning him with a mixture of awe and fear. What happened? Jake's voice was hoarse, as if he'd just woken from a dream. Lyra didn't answer immediately. She took a cautious step forward, her gaze locked onto him. You did it. You unlocked the power, Jake. But Jake wasn't sure. The crystal had exploded, and he had felt it. The armor had nearly consumed him, and he'd been on the brink of losing control. But now that it was over, he felt the sharp sting of exhaustion, as though the energy had taken everything from him. It wasn't just physical, it was as if his very essence had been stretched too thin. "Where's the creature?" Jake asked, looking around. "It's gone." "Did we?" Before he could finish his sentence, the ground beneath them trembled again. It wasn't the same as before. This time, the vibrations were deeper, more deliberate. A deep growl rumbled through the chamber, sending a cold shiver down Jake's spine. The air was thick with tension, and the armor on his body seemed to hum. In response to the growing danger, Lyra's eyes widened. "It's not over. The creature is still coming." Jake's heart raced. He had thought they had won. He had thought the explosion had destroyed whatever threat remained. But this felt different. The vibrations grew stronger, and then, with a deafening roar, the creature burst through the stone walls of the chamber. It wasn't the same creature that had attacked them earlier. No, this one was different. Far larger, its body covered in jagged, blackened armor that seemed to pulse with dark energy. Its eyes glowed red, burning with hatred as it locked onto Jake. The creature's form had mutated, evolving beyond its original purpose. But what was more terrifying was the energy radiating from I-10 energy that mirrored Jake's own. The creature wasn't just a guardian anymore. It had absorbed the very power Jake had unlocked, and now it was infused with the same ancient force. Lyra stepped back, fear evident in her eyes. This is impossible. It wasn't supposed to evolve. It wasn't meant to absorb the power of the city. Jake's heart pounded in his chest as the creature moved toward him, its massive claws scraping against the stone floor, sending sparks flying. The ground beneath them cracked, and the chamber itself seemed to tremble in response to the creature's presence. It was no longer just a mindless guardian. It was a weapon, a living weapon that had been imbued with the power of the armor. "You're too late," the creature hissed, its voice deep and guttural, echoing through the chamber. "You have awakened what should have stayed hidden, and now you will pay the price." Jake instinctively stepped back, his body moving on its own, the armor adjusting to his every movement. He could feel the power within him stirring again, but this time, it was different. He wasn't sure if he could control it. The creature was an extension of that power, a dark mirror of what Jake had unlocked. He wasn't sure if he was strong enough to fight it. "You have no idea what you've done," the creature continued, its eyes flashing with malevolent glee. "I was the last of the guardians, but now I will be the end of everything." Jake's breath hitched. "What do you mean?" The creature's claws scraped across the ground as it moved closer, its voice like a whisper in the wind. "You opened the door to the weapon that lies beneath this city. The crystal was never meant to be freed, and now it will bring about the end of all things. It will consume you." Lyra stepped forward, her voice filled with desperation. "Jake, listen to me. The creature, it was meant to stop the power, but now that it's absorbed the energy, it's no longer just a guardian. It's become the embodiment of the weapon itself." Jake's mind raced. The creature had absorbed the power, but what did that mean? Was he too late? Could he still stop it? "You have the armor," Lyra continued. "That's your only hope. You have to tap into it, fully. You can't hesitate. You have to fight fire." With fire, Jake's pulse quickened. He reached for the armor, feeling its hum beneath his fingertips, urging him to embrace its power. The golden symbols on the armor flickered as the power within him surged. The armor was alive, responding to his thoughts, but there was so much more to unlock. He could feel the creature's power dark, twisted, consuming, but he had to focus. "I have no choice," Jake muttered, more to himself than anyone else. He stepped forward, pushing through the weight of the energy that swirled around him, the power crackling in the air like static. The creature hissed in amusement, watching him carefully as it advanced, claws sharp and ready to strike. Jake closed his eyes, focusing. The armor responded to him, the energy flowing through him like fire. He could feel the power, but it was wild, untamed. He had no control, and it terrified him. But he couldn't hesitate. Not now. With a primal scream, Jake thrust his hands forward, and the golden light of the armor flared around him, engulfing him in a storm of energy. The creature's claws came down, but Jake's power collided with it, sending a shockwave through the chamber. The force was blinding. The energy so intense that the walls seemed to buckle under the pressure. The creature staggered back, its body seething with black energy. Jake could feel the power surging through him, but it was more than he could handle. The armor was pushing him to his limits, and he was on the brink of losing himself to it. The creature, however, was not going down easily. It fought back with a fury that mirrored his own, and the battle was only growing more intense. Jake gritted, his teeth, sweat streaming down his face. "I won't let you win," the creature snarled, its eyes burning with dark fire. "Then prepare to lose everything, human." In that moment, Jake understood. The battle wasn't just for his life, it was for the very balance of the universe. The power he had unlocked had the potential to destroy everything, and now, he had to face the consequences of his choices. Would he be consumed by the darkness, or could he harness the light that was within him? The fight was far from over, and Jake wasn't sure how much longer he could keep going before the armor and the creature overwhelmed him. The final showdown. The chamber was bathed in the glow of golden energy, the air thick with the crackling tension of an ancient power ready to explode. The creature loomed before Jake, its monstrous form now a terrifying embodiment of the power it had absorbed. Jake's breath came in ragged gasps, his body shaking with the weight of the energy coursing through him. His thoughts were a blur, overwhelmed by the power of the armor and the crystal, a force he could barely control. "You can't win, human," the creature hissed, its voice now laced with malice. It flexed its claws, each one as long as Jake's arm, sharp and dripping with dark energy. "I have become more than you can comprehend. The power you unlocked has consumed you, and now it will be my weapon." Jake's heart hammered in his chest, his mind racing. He had no idea how long he could hold on to the power. He could feel it threatening to swallow him whole. The energy within the armor was too vast, too wild. It surged through him, responding to his fear, to his doubt. But there was something else there, connection to the armor that was deeper than anything he could understand. Lyra stood at the edge of the chamber, watching with wide eyes. "Jake," she called out, her voice filled with desperation. "You can't let it control you. You have to fight back. Use the armor's will, not just its power." Jake wanted to scream in frustration. "How?" he shouted, his voice trembling with the weight of the energy that was threatening to explode from him. "I don't know how to control it." The creature lunged, its claws slashing through the air. Jake barely had time to react. The world slowed as the creature's claws came down toward him, and Jake felt a sudden shift inside the armor. It wasn't just a reaction to the creature's attack, it was something else. A force. A will. In that moment, Jake understood. The armor wasn't just a weapon. It wasn't just a tool to fight with. It was a living, sentient part of him, a part of a much larger whole. And it had been waiting for him to learn how to wield it, to connect with it fully. The armor responded to his realization. The golden symbols on its surface blazed to life, glowing brighter than ever before. Energy surged through Jake's body, but this time, it was different. It wasn't overwhelming. It was steady, controlled, as if the armor itself had become a part of him, a part that he could guide. He raised his hand just in time to meet the creature's claws, and when their forces collided, the room erupted in a flash of blinding light. The creature staggered back, its eyes filled with confusion and rage. Jake's mind was still spinning, but now, he could feel it, the connection between him and the armor, a bond forged in the heat of battle. He wasn't just wielding the armor, he was becoming it. "You're weak," the creature snarled. You've barely unlocked its power. You think you can defeat me with what little you know? Jake stood tall, his body now humming with energy. The air around him crackled with raw force. I don't need to defeat you with brute strength, he said, his voice steady and filled with an unshakable resolve. I've learned that the power of this armor isn't about force. It's about control. With that, Jake thrust his hands forward, his fingers glowing with a golden light that erupted like a storm. The energy from the armor flowed out of him, pouring into the creature. It screamed as the power enveloped it, but it wasn't just pain. It was something far worse. The energy from the armor was not just attacking it, was disassembling the creature, breaking it apart from the inside. The creature howled in agony, its body writhing and shifting as the armor's energy tore through it. Its once invincible form began to deteriorate, the dark energy that had consumed it slowly unraveling. Jake's hands trembled with the force of the energy, but he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. The creature's roar filled the chamber, but it was no match for the purity of the armor's power. Lyra watched, stunned. Jake, you're doing it. You're controlling it. But Jake barely heard her. His entire focus was on the creature, on the energy that surged from his body and consumed it. He could feel the creature's life force ebbing away, the last remnants of its dark power dissolving into nothingness. The creature's struggles grew weaker, its movements slower, until, with one final screech, it fell to the ground, its body crumbling into ash. The silence that followed was deafening. Jake stood there, panting, his hands still glowing with the remnants of the energy. The armor hummed around him, its golden light flickering before slowly fading, returning to its normal, quiet state. His body felt heavy, exhausted from the battle, but there was a sense of peace now, like the storm had finally passed. Lyra stepped forward cautiously, her eyes wide with amazement. Jake, you did it. Jake looked down at the armor, feeling the last tremors of the energy fading. I don't know how, he said, his voice hoarse, but I think I've finally figured it out. The power wasn't about force, it was about balance. Lyra nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. The armor chose you for a reason. You're the one who could see that, Jake. You're the one who could control it. Jake glanced down at the armor, his fingers lightly tracing the glowing symbols. But what happens now? The creature's gone, but the power still remains. Lyra's face darkened. The power you've awakened is ancient. It's not something that can just be locked away. It's alive, and it will always be a part of you now. But that doesn't mean it's a curse. It's a gift if you can wield it wisely. Jake looked at her, the weight of her words sinking in. He had no idea what the future held, but for the first time, he felt ready to face it. The armor had chosen him for a reason, and now, with its power at his command, he would protect what mattered most, because he knew, deep down, that the true test had only just begun. The world outside the chamber lay in ruins, but Jake knew one thing. He was no longer just an explorer. He was something more, something tied to the very fate of the universe. And as the light from the armor flickered one last time, Jake understood that his journey was only beginning.